views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the main watch today, the DPP saga, thoughts and conclusions. And in the second watch, keep the children moving. For a social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on all the issues surrounding the DPP's office? Share your responses on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your comments later on the program, but first, here's I quote.
All right, this morning's I quote says, "Without families, nations crumble." And this one is from Jim Daly.
Is this the same Jim Daly who is of Focus on the Family? I'm wondering. I think so.
It could be. Yeah,
because it sounds like something that a Jim Daly would say. Believing strongly in firm, solid Christian families to keep the nation together. At the moment, some nations appear to be falling apart.
Yep.
The main watch will be back after this break.
Sometimes all we need is a listening ear. The listening ear, the counseling, the logical reasoning, and spiritual guidance are what appeal to us. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, the counselor, your counselor on Love 101 FM, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. You know you can call on me. I will listen and more. So let's talk about what's bothering you. Anything. Tune in, listen, call in, text or voice message. I'm Dr. Joan Pinkney, counseling psychologist, ready with a listening ear. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 11 p.m. Right here on the family station, Love 101 FM.
In light of the prevailing drought conditions affecting sections of the island, Love 101, the family station, would like to share some water-saving tips to use during this period. Wipe away gravy, grease, and food scraps from plates and bowls before washing. If dishes are washed by hand, don't leave the water running for rinsing. If there are two sinks, fill one with soapy water and one with rinse water. If there's only one sink, gather washed dishes in a dish rack and rinse them in a pan full of water. Water, don't waste it. Let's conserve it. A friendly reminder from the family station, Love 101, the #1 gospel station in Jamaica.
Love 101 invites you to listen to Leading the Way with Dr. Michael Youssef.
God's blessing of salvation is not only to forgive you all of your sins here and now, but to keep you safe for all of eternity.
Dr. Michael Youssef.
God's blessings for your salvation will keep you protected, and it's going to keep you protected even from your own foolish decisions. He'll keep you protected even if you are prone to wander away from Him. Will keep you protected from your ingratitude to His grace and blessing.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch, and the Attorney General's chambers of this island of Jamaica has asserted that the recent ruling by the court does not mean that Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn will have to. Does not mean that Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn will have to vacate the office. But there is disagreement with this position by various persons and bodies. And at the moment, there is an acting director of public prosecutions. Well, let us discuss the various issues today, this morning, in the first watch, to the extent that we can, because never enough time in the morning watch. Let us discuss what we can in relation to some of the issues surrounding this matter. Our guests that we would like to have today, and checking to see if these guests are on. I gather one of them is on. Is it Bert Samuels, attorney at law, who we have on, or is it president of the Cornwall Bar Association, Michael Hemmings? Mr. Hemmings, Michael Hemmings?
Morning, Michael Hemmings is on.
Michael Hemmings. We also hope to be joined by Bert Samuels, attorney at law, on this very I don't want to say seismic, but it is quite a significant event in our history here as an island. Now, Mr. Hemmings, you're the president of the Cornwall Bar Association, and what I'd like to firstly gather from you, if you can, to the extent that you wish to or that you can, what was the claim about that was put before the full court concerning the office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, or the person holding that position, and what was the decision of the court? And as summarized the way as you can, sir.
Certainly. Thank you for having me this morning. As it relates to a claim before the court, there was a claim brought before the court by Philip Paulwell against the Attorney General as it relates to how the extension was granted to the DPP. And essentially, they are challenging Section 2, subsection 2 of the amendment to the Constitution as it relates to extension. And essentially, they are saying that the way it was done was in contravention with Section 96, subsection 1 of the Constitution, in that it was done without consultation. And also that as a result of the extension, it gave the DPP the power to elect to stay in office, and that was not the intention of the framers of the Constitution. And essentially, the effect of the decision of the full court is that the court has declared what the law is, as it relates to the amendment. So essentially, what the court did was to declare that Section 2, subsection 2 of the amendment, as it was passed by Parliament, was done unlawfully, and it is in contravention with the Constitution. And in a sense, the court made a declaratory order, and by making a declaratory order, a court is declaring what the law is. And the court is not essentially saying that something must be done. The court is declaring the law in the judgment, and whatever the court declares must be adhered to.
Thank you, sir. Now, you mentioned a claim brought by Philip Paulwell. I just want to also mention, sir, I'm assuming that it was just an omission. The second claimant is Peter Bunting.
That is correct as well.
Both the gentlemen are of the People's National Party. Now, quickly, one of the things I noticed, having heard all the various arguments in relation to this particular decision of the court, one of the things I noticed, and I'm kind of somewhat putting on my part-time lecturer hat, where I do lecture students in certain legal courses at a particular tertiary institution in the island. One of the things I noticed about the orders, it says, first of all, judgment to the claimants. And it then reads the court decision as follows. And the court declares as follows. It then goes on to say, number 2, Section 2.1 of the Act is a valid constitutional amendment. And item 3, Section 2.2 of the Act, and this is the Amendment Act that had amended the Constitution in relation to this particular issue decided by the court. Section 2.2 of the Act is an invalid constitutional amendment. As a consequence, Section 2.2 is severed from the Act and is struck down and declared as unconstitutional, null, void, and of no legal effect. The 4th limb of the order or orders, parties shall file and exchange written submissions on costs no later than 7 days of the date hereof. such submissions shall be heard on paper. Now, what I found a little bit interesting is the first two limbs of the order. One, judgment for the claimants. And if you look at the claim, a number of things were being requested, to include that, if I may, sir, to include that among the things that the claimants were seeking, and forgive me because I'm trying to do this all at the same time whilst I'm speaking with you. One of the things that they sought to have is a declaration that Section 2 of the Act was enacted in breach of the separation of powers principle and is therefore inconsistent with the Constitution, null and void. And also it goes on to say, well, even before that, it also asks that a declaration be made that Section 2 of the Constitution, amendment of sections 96(1) and 121(1) of the Act of 2023, the Act was enacted for an improper purpose and is therefore inconsistent with the Constitution, null and void. And if I could jump down to Section 3, it also asks for a declaration that Section 2 of the Act would have the effect of circumventing, undermining, and or contradicting the constitutionally mandated process for the extension of the term in office of a director of public prosecutions and is therefore inconsistent with the Constitution, null and void. And number 4 is also interesting. In the alternative and or furtherance and or consequent upon the grant of the declarations at paragraphs 1, 2, and or 3, and order that Section 2(1) of the Act is to be read and construed as not applying to a person who is the Director of Public Prosecutions as at the date of commencement of the Act, and that Section 2(2) is to be struck out. Now, go back to the orders of the court, Mr. Hemmings. Limb number 1, judgment for the claimants. It goes on to read in bold print, the court declares as follows. Part 2 of the order, Section 2(1) of the Act is a valid constitutional amendment. So if it is judgment for the claimants simpliciter, why do you need the second limb of the order? Question to you, Mr. Hemmings. If you're saying that you're making a declaration, well, it's a fixed date claim form that they file, and I won't bore listeners with what that means. But sometimes when you have a judgment or an order, rather, you would see language to the effect that this is an order in terms of the fixed date claim form. But yes, in this case, what you agree. So what we see here is judgment for the claimants, and then the second limb of the order is Section 2(1) of the Act is valid. If you're making judgment for the claimants, why do you need the second limb of the order? I'm just wondering.
But because what the court is essentially doing is to provide clarity. The court is saying that Section 2, subsection 1.
Does it provide clarity in your view?
It does, because the decision of the court was clear. The court is saying that Section 2, subsection 1 was done properly, and they take no issue with the amendment as it was. What the court is taking issue with is Section 2, subsection 2, that gave the DPP the power to elect or to continue as the DPP, having already received an extension.
And you know, of course, what Section 2(1) reads.
Yes.
And for the benefit of the listeners, I think we're upon a break already, or almost upon the break. I gather we are already upon a break. I'm not sure if Mr. Samuels is going to be joining us. I gather he might be joining us, certainly on the other side of the break. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Aculab Diagnostics Limited, located at ATL Plaza in Montego Bay, for all your blood testing needs. Open every day, including Sundays, 6132714.
The time by Aculab Diagnostics Limited is
7:15.
Jamaica's gangs are like packs of rats. They live in filth and try and drag us all in there with rats, spreading the disease of violence and corruption everywhere. Nasty. But like a pack of rats, they can be eliminated. Rats with your help. If you have information on gangs, call Crime Stop on 311. This message is brought to you by Crime Stop and their marketing partners, Lime and NCB.
Truth is, HIV affects everyone. Truth is, avoiding care leads to a weaker immune system. That means you could get really sick. The truth is, the hardest pill to swallow isn't the medication. It's the problems that follow when you don't take them. Let's get through this together. Remain in care. You can live life to the fullest with HIV. And that's the truth. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
You know them, the movers, the shakers, the people making a difference, who never shy away from a challenge, who are never afraid to dirty their hands, to jump in and get things done, who are never afraid to fail, to take a risk, to learn. You know them and aspire to be like them. And you can, because there's always room for greatness. Apply today. University of Technology Jamaica, the birthplace of greatness.
Once upon a time, there was a girl named Kay. She loved to dance and play. One day at school, she got very ill, and Mom was left with an unbearable bill. It would be easier if Mom was prepared. With School Companion, 80% of the bill is cleared. Medical care for children is a must. For as low as $2,400 per month, make unbearable medical bills go away. Sign up for Surgical School Companion today.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch, and the topic is the DPP saga. Thoughts and conclusions, and our guests are Michael Hemmings, President of the Cornwall Bar Association, and of course, an attorney at law. And we also have Bert Samuels, attorney at law. I gather Bert Samuels is now on the line. Good morning, Mr. Samuels.
Morning. Hi, Hemming.
Morning, Mr. Samuels.
Before we bring in Mr. Samuels, I want to just finish a point that I was looking at here in terms of the order made of the Honorable Full Court last Friday, or certainly announced last Friday. Now, Mr. Hemmings, you said you had looked, or you know what Section 2.1 of the Amendment Act reads, and essentially what Section 2.1 of the Amendment Act does, it allows the DPP's term of office to extend up to age 65, but certainly no more than age 70. And Section 2.1, of course, has been upheld by the court, the full court, as constitutional. Section 2.2 is the section that has been declared as unconstitutional, null and void. And that section reads, notwithstanding anything in subsection 1, which we just referred to, a person who is Director of Public Prosecutions at the date of commencement of this act may, by memorandum in writing, given to the Governor General, elect to retire at any time after attaining the age of 60 years. That section has been removed as being null and void and contrary to the Constitution. So having said all of that, sir, or having read all of that, if it is, and remember that the prayers or the orders, into the requests, I should have said, the requests of the claimants, would have included to strike out the entire Section 2. So if it is that the court kept Section 2.1, removed Section 2.2, but prior to that said that the claimant's claim stands, or ruled in favor of judgment for the claimants, pardon me, then isn't indicating that Section 2.1 is still relevant. Doesn't that still allow the DPP to retire at age 65? I'm not. It seems to me as if something might need some clarity. I don't know, Mr. Hemmings, your thought?
No, because Section 2.1, the purpose of Section 2.1 which is to increase the age of retirement for the DPP.
Yeah.
And Section 2.2 was the section that was introduced that gave her the power to elect to remain in office. Having received an extension prior, the court is saying that Section 2.2, she cannot then elect to remain in office because it would offend Section 96, subsection 1 of the Constitution, which puts in place a measure or a mechanism in which the extension ought to be granted.
But would she need to elect because she's not yet 65, so she could remain until 65? I'm asking. I don't know. I mean, Section 2.1 stands. Section 2.1 was not removed by the decision of the court, and the claimants had asked for the removal of the entire Section 2, including Section 2.1.
No, but remember, she got an extension for 3 years. So strictly speaking, her extension would have been up to her 63rd birthday, 3 years. And then when
But
Section 2
notwithstanding that,
elected to remain,
2.1 is clear. She can go to 65. Anyway, I am not a judge. I am asking these questions. Let's bring in Mr. Samuels. Mr. Samuels, your thoughts on the matter so far?
Yeah, it can be complicated, but I prefer to try and do it in a simple way. All extensions for, to go on must be granted by the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister and consultation leader of the opposition.
Would she need an
she assumed those powers by the law, was giving her those powers for the extension. It must be given by those three persons. And remember, the history of it is, when she applied for the second extension, the Prime Minister said, no, you can't take that out of the equation. So it was not a constitutionally instigated extension. It was a Paula Llewellyn optional institute. She was given the option that should be given by those officers of the Constitution.
I hear all of that, but Section 2.1 was explicitly ruled by the court as standing. She's not yet 65.
But the second section was
Mr. Samuels, let me finish.
And they're basically saying that Miss Llewellyn cannot give herself.
It doesn't. The order doesn't say that. The order doesn't say that. The order doesn't say that. What the order says is that Section 2.1 stands. You can go up to age 65, and she's not yet 65. What is the confusion?
Yeah, but you see, you go up by way of extensions. Remember, she's under the old regime, She was under the 6-year barrier.
Does the order say that? Does the order say that?
Beyond that.
What does the order say that?
I'm
going off what I read in the order. It's not about Miss Llewellyn.
The second extension was ultra vires the Constitution.
I'm not looking at it as Miss Llewellyn. I'm looking at it as what the order says, because I'm hearing what I sense is that there might have been an intent. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm wrong, but I get the sense from hearing pundits speak that there was an intention for the order to say one thing, but did the order say exactly what people think it was intended to say? That's the question I'm asking.
Well, I think I prefer to talk about declarations. The court didn't make orders; it made declarations. That's preferred to look at it that way. And when you have a declaration, the state will follow and treat the declarations as orders.
Understood. You see, the thing is that
the Crown Proceedings Act.
Well, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Samuels, but it reads the orders of the court. That's what it says. So anyway, I don't want to belabor that.
I remember the order point came up and the Attorney General seemed to have misled himself in saying that because it wasn't an order that she should leave, then she should remain. So we have to be careful how we're using the word orders as opposed to declarations.
It is what the document reads.
Sometimes the court says the following orders are made. One, a declaration. That's so-and-so. So in fact, it is a declaration. But there are times when it is more coercive. It gives an order that the person should leave the office. There were no orders sought by the claimant, they sought declarations only. That's it. Listen, declare whether this constitutional amendment is constitutional. And the court says one is, the other isn't. Now, the effect and the fallout of the second one not being so, Miss Llewellyn was extended under the second order. So if that goes, she goes.
So you don't think there's anything to appeal, Mr. Samuels?
No, man, there is. I'm not saying that I'm trying to say what the effect of the order of the court is. Maybe they are wrong. The Court of Appeal should test it. It is just that I made this point, and I repeat it, that when the court makes a declaration against the state must treat the declaration as an order.
Okay. So what would the Court of Appeal be reviewing then, if they are to review anything, in your view?
They're virtually just, maybe they go back and look at the first 2.1 and 2.2 to see whether they offended the Constitution.
Okay. Mr. Hemmings, your thoughts?
Well, I share the thoughts of Mr. Samuels, and I stick by the position that the court was correct in its ruling.
Yes, I'm not talking about whether it's correct or incorrect. It's for me, having read it, I asked myself those questions. And as I said, as you had agreed, Mr. Hemmings, in the first, before the break, normally you would see language, and the claim was brought as a fixed date claim form. And normally you would see language to the words to the effect that there would be an order in terms of the fixed date claim form, which is very clear. So you know exactly what the court is saying. And if they want to make an exception, you would see language to show that this is the exception to what the order in terms of the fixed date claim form is. Instead, what you have here is simple language. It says the orders of the court, judgment for the claimants, and then it goes on to say section 2.1 is upheld, but section 2.2 isn't. Anyway, a question I think no one is raising.
Yeah.
Mr. Hemmings, Mr. Samuels, and if you can jump in. What does this mean personally now for the person holding the office? But her employment law status, her employment law rights. Any thoughts on that? Pension. Yes.
Well,
she has been a public servant for a long time, and if
she can appeal to the Public Service Commission that she was wrongly taken out of her office, she would have those recourses.
Yeah, and the implication, if her tenure were to really be, if her tenure had really ended from whether last year or last Friday.
September. She became 63 in September.
Yes.
So virtually, since September, she really was occupying the position unconstitutionally. That's the effect of it. It's just that the Constitution itself says that her actions and orders and decisions made, even though she ought not to have, would not be invalid. So the Constitution was the drafters of the Constitution were careful to say, listen, if somebody is staying beyond the time they should really stay, the actions they take will not be invalid. And that's a good section, for governance.
Understood from a governance standpoint, but I'm speaking from an individual standpoint. If you were the holder of the office, Mr. Samuels, and then you gather that suddenly the court said that whatever you really shouldn't have been holding the post since last year, or even say last Friday, for argument's sake. What does that mean for you personally? Your pension, your benefits, etc.
No, I don't know. She's retired, and she retired. She's not dismissed. When a public servant is dismissed for wrongdoing, then it can affect, I understand, some amount of pension that you'll be getting. But Ms. Llewellyn is not out for misconduct. No, not at all. So she'll get all the benefits,
And the matter of the acting DPP. I have heard many persons sing praises for the acting DPP, Miss Claudette A. Thompson, Mr. Hemmings, Mr. Samuels.
Yeah, I mean, I know her personally. Remember, the appointment of an acting DPP can come in several circumstances. If the DPP is ill, for example, there must be an acting person, and it's the Public Service Commission would sit and appoint that. Now, the substantive post to be filled, it must now be constitutionally treated. So it's the Prime Minister again, when the permanent person is to be put in place. It may be Ms. Thompson, maybe someone else, advising the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister in consultation with the leader of the opposition. So that's how it is to be permanently filled.
A quick one before we wrap, because I gather we're completely or almost completely out of time. Were persons concerned about Miss Llewellyn as a human being, as a person? Is that in any way, shape, or form fueling some of the comments? Fueling some of the comments in relation to the decision of the court, not the decision of the court itself, but are persons in any way, shape, or form reacting to the decision based on how they feel personally about Miss Llewellyn? Mr. Hemmings?
I can't speak about persons and how they feel. What I can speak for myself. Miss Llewellyn is a colleague of mine, a very good advocate, consummate professional,
outspoken,
very, very outspoken,
available to the media.
She is, a matter of fact, she's also available to defend. She has open door policy. I have oftentimes made trips to her office to have discussions with her as it relates to matters that I have before the court. She is always welcoming. And
David there this morning. I think we're totally and completely out of time. We have extended our time, I think. I want to thank Bert Samuels and Mr. Michael Hemmings for being guests with us in this first watch. Very interesting. We wait to see what the Court of Appeal does if the government pursues the appeal. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time and for your thoughts. The morning watch will be back after this break.
The time by Gem Bank is
7:31 a.m.
Portmore Church of God Music Department presents Rhythm and Praise on Friday, April 26, 2024 at 7 p.m. featuring Rhoda Isabella, Rhonda Positive, John Mark Wigan, Audio Spencer Brown, Minister B. Brown, and Queen Saj, MC Dexter Johnson at the Portmore Church of God, Edgewater, Portmore. Admission 3,000 pre-sold and 3,500 at the gate. Children under 12, 1,500. For ticket information, please contact 988-1857 or visit borough.com/Rhythm Praise. Sponsored by Crosslinks Productions, P&S Events and Vacations, Jamaica Youth for Christ, and Love 101.
Juicy and a real party bro. Everybody, get the door, burn up your Juicy have the best parties. One bag of flavor, them fling panny. Love it, freshly baked, the flaky crust. Baby, full me good, the gas a bus. Shrimp or veggie patty, whoa. Juicy have the flavor you love. Chicken or crab in this party, whoa. Juicy and a real party bro. Juicy have the party, them Jamaica love. Get it today, Island White.
Think ahead, make a plan. We got the freedom of choice.
Like long-acting reversible contraceptives.
I made my choice 6 years ago. I have an IUCD, also called copper T, and it will go and protect me from pregnancy for another 4 years at least.
My choice was an implant. It lasts for 5 years. And when I'm ready for a baby, I just make doctor take it out.
Contact the National Family Planning Board at 968-1632 to find out more about the Lord. Think ahead, make a plan. We got the freedom of choice.
Everyone has a big to-do list nowadays. With this busy schedule, it's easy to forget about yourself. Don't neglect your blood work. Just go for a quick and easy testing with Aculab Diagnostics Limited. Swift, simple testing, tailored to your timetable. They're open every day, including Sundays, keeping pace with your calendar. Dial 613-2714 for more details. That's 613-2714. Quick results, late hours. Because you matter.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And we have here in Loop Jamaica News Online 8 things to know about acting DPP Claudette Thompson. Very interesting. And we have in the Gleaner Online, among the latest news online, students to benefit from SLB's improved client engagement strategies. And among the stories, lead stories in the Gleaner today, not enough. Jamaica Labour Party JLP stalwart and former Cabinet Minister Derek Smith says the changes coming out of Sunday's Central Executive meeting are not enough. And it continues, that story continues. We turn now to the Daily Observer. There's a reference to the story at page 8 of the Daily Observer. Dom Rep urges Jamaica to lift visa requirement. Also on the front page of the Daily Observer, a photograph of the acting DPP here. And the story is by Elisa Dunkley Ellis. Acting DPP gets thumbs up. The attorneys describe Claudette Thompson as consummate professional. Those and many other stories in our various news sources. Coming up next, we will read for some of the feedback from our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp question, which is, what are your thoughts on all the issues surrounding the DPP's office? If you haven't done so yet, leave your responses in our Facebook or YouTube. Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. And I'll read the feedback question again. What are your thoughts on all the issues surrounding the DPP's office? The Morning Watch will be back after this break.
In light of the prevailing drought conditions affecting sections of the island, Love Love 101, the family station, would like to share some water-saving tips to use during this period. Wipe away gravy, grease, and food scraps from plates and bowls before washing. If dishes are washed by hand, don't leave the water running for rinsing. If there are 2 sinks, fill one with soapy water and one with rinse water. If there's only 1 sink, gather washed dishes in a dish rack and rinse them in a pan full of water. Water, don't waste it. Let's conserve it. A friendly reminder from the family station, Love 101, the #1 gospel station in Jamaica.
Best known as the man who betrayed Jesus and for being a thief, Judas was still one of Jesus' disciples. But who was Judas before that dreadful evening? What made him into the man he became, and why did he do the things he did? Tuesday, April 23 on The Rock. Join guests Roland Gale and Hurley Taylor as they discuss the topic Judas Iscariot. That's The Rock, Tuesday, April 23 at 10 a.m. here on the family station Love 101.
Get ready for another inspiring show. This Testimony Tuesdays are live 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. April 23, packed with inspirational stories and unfavored music. 1:45, we bring you the brain testing exercise, listener speak edition. Stick around for prayer blast at 2 o'clock as we bring in the prayer bells of heaven. 2:15 is the evidence. We hear the powerful testimony of Mr. David Greenwilson. You can't afford to miss it. Then at 3 p.m., we go behind the pulpit for another life-transforming story. All this and more will come alive 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. April 23 with me, Sarah, and the Chirpy One on the family station Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's join Jakal for a look at how our friends on Facebook and WhatsApp answer today's question. What are your thoughts on all the issues surrounding the DPP's office? Jakal.
All right, so we do have a response here from Monica. Monica says the Constitution is the supreme law of the country. We must therefore abide by it. And that's the response that we have.
We wait to see what the Court of Appeal does in this matter.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that the Court of Appeal needs to look at it because I have my own thoughts on the decision, and I think that there are things about the judgment that might need to be looked at. But we wait to see, and it will definitely provide some clarity, hopefully, to the law and to the situation at hand. We move right into the second watch. Schools continue to be a critical environment for facilitating healthy habits. Well, hopefully healthy habits, not bad ones. And this includes physical activity. And the Jamaica School Ambassador Program and National School Moves Day, April 26th, are just 2 initiatives that help to promote this, or that are to help to promote this. However, there is more that can be done. And what are those things? And who is championing the cause? We have as our guests today, Shaniel Allen, Policy and Advocacy Coordinator, Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network, JYAN, and Ophneal Lamont, physiotherapist at the GC Foster College of Physical Education and Sport. Ophneal Lamont, Shaniel Allen, good morning.
Hi, morning. Can you hear us?
Shaniel Allen.
Hi, morning.
Yes, that's me. Can you hear me and hear me well?
Yes. Ophneal Lamont.
Can you hear me also?
Yes. Hearing both of you. I'm hearing the both of you. Now, what are these initiatives? And if I could maybe even start firstly with Shaniel Allen. Shaniel Allen, did I pronounce your first name correctly?
Oh, you got it. You got it the first try. Fantastic.
Okay. All right. What is the role and purpose of the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network, generally speaking, before we drill down into the topic at hand?
All right, thank you. So Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network is a youth-led organization, and we generally focus on youth issues. And essentially, our focus is to amplify the voice of young people in Jamaica and to advocate for better lives and for the inclusion of young people in Jamaica. And so particularly we're focused on nutrition for young people, gender-based violence, HIV and those other kinds of things to ensure that young people's voices are heard, that they're offered the best possible quality of services and those kinds of things. So essentially we advocate for young people and we ensure that their voices are heard and that they have a seat at the table when it comes to decision-making processes that may affect them.
I took a look at what appears to be your website. I see a lot of references to human rights. Is the network a human rights organization?
In short, I suppose you could say that, yes.
Okay. And what are some of the rights that you advocate for?
Well, essentially, and one of the ones that we're focusing right now is the right to health. And conversations like this is a part of our advocacy on the right to health.
What is the right to health? It's a very broad area.
It's very broad and it's not constitutionally protected in Jamaica, but the right to health and an healthy environment to ensure that essentially each person, just by being a human, is guaranteed the things they need or the resources they need to be in as best health as possible.
Okay. And so you advocate for children's rights?
Yes, sir. And human rights broadly, but of course we focus mostly on children and youth.
Okay, because I don't know if this is relevant to your network, but sometimes children's rights these days in some parts of the world is becoming quite interesting, you know, talking about reproductive health rights, rights to abortion, LGBTQ rights. When I saw the reference to human rights on your website, I wondered about the length and breadth, but are some of those issues that I just named relevant to this network or not?
Oh, yes, of course. Particularly sexual and reproductive health rights. And we typically champion those conversations under gender-based violence and HIV, just the right to self-determination and what that might look like for young people too.
Self-determination would likely include LGBTQ rights?
Yes, in some way.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting organization you have there. So in terms of the matter of diet and nutrition and that sort of thing today, what are you saying?
Okay, particularly when it comes to the diet and nutrition, one of the things we're advocating for, much like our focus with young people, is the National School Nutrition Policy for its implementation in schools. So we are advocating for its implementation in September 2024, where young people will have essentially a policy to ensure the regulation of the school food environment, to ensure that they're eating better, to ensure that the meals are properly balanced, and also to ensure that they have healthier options within schools. And what's interesting about the school nutrition policy, it's not that it's just to
less sugar.
In part. So less of the nutrients of concern. So we call nutrients of concern are sugar, trans fats, sodium, and salt. And so essentially the school nutrition policy would regulate the school food environment to ensure there are less of those critical nutrients in schools and students have healthier options. Because what we found in some schools, students do not have healthier options. So even if they wanted to eat healthier, there isn't the option. And so that is why we're advocating for the National School Nutrition Policy to regulate early childhood, primary and secondary schools. And what's interesting about the policy, though, is it doesn't only look at what students eat, but there's also an element of physical activity to get our children more active. And also,
which is why I want to bring in Mr. Lamont, if I can, before the break. Mr. Lamont? Afni Lamont?
Yes.
I think, well, you know what? I think what we will do.
Are you hearing me?
I think what we will, we're hearing you now, but what I think we will do is wait to have you comment on the other side of the break. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back at the Morning Watch.
Follow the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development on Instagram and X at LocalGovJA. The time by the ministry is
7:45 a.m.
Every Thursday morning, Love 101 shares with you power-packed messages, words of encouragement, and testimonies of God's miraculous power. You get all of that in the Don't Give Up broadcast, brought to you by Celebration Church at the Portmore Skating Rink in the Portmore Mall with Pastor Prophet Michael Carter. Be sure to stay tuned to Love 101 for the Don't Give Up broadcast. Get the word you need to start your day right. The Don't Give Up broadcast, Thursdays at 5:15 a.m. on the family station, Love 101.
Call me shrewd. I am getting in when the markets are attractively priced.
Call me smart. I am getting set to capitalize when the markets have increased potential. Call me savvy. I have a mix of wise investments, so I'm earning no matter the season.
They're all investing in Sagicor Investments Sigma Global Funds, like our US dollar Sigma Global Equity and Sigma Green Growth. Never settle for less than your dreams. Start investing now in Sigma Global Funds. Call 888 Sagicor to speak with a Sagicor Investments Wealth Advisor. Conditions apply.
Mama work hard, for real. She do the most to send me and my brother go school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled 2 dreams with 1 joint bank savings plan, you know. I further my education and I make mama proud.
Take the path, travel hard, graduate like a star.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and our topic in the second watch is keep the children moving. Keep the children moving. And our guests for this second watch are Chanel Allen. She's a policy and advocacy coordinator of the Jamaica Youth Advocacy Network, JYAN. And we also have Afni Lamont, physiotherapist, GC Foster College of Physical Education and Sport. Before the break, Mr. Lamont, we were attempting to have you start to enlighten us on some of the physical activity relevant to keeping the children moving. Would you like to develop on that, sir?
Yeah, so thanks again for having us. So first of all, just to piggyback on what Ms. Allen has been saying, so the National Nutrition Policy essentially has a physical activity component. And I think just to frame why we're even having this conversation, so for example, let's look at the facts, right, as it relates to obesity and overweight. In 2022, globally, 1 in 8 person.
I'm going to jump in here right now. I'm going to jump in, Mr. Lamont. I'm going to jump in right here. Because in some circles, this is not politically correct to call people obese. And you heard what your colleague said. Miss Allen, you're about being inclusive. So can you unravel that, Mr. Lamont? Because you have advertisements now, places where they are featuring, you know, persons who are a little bit larger than others and saying you need to be proud and don't feel badly. Don't let anyone make you feel bad because of your weight. Your views, Mr. Lamont? Go ahead, Mr. Lamont.
So I think it's very important that when we're dealing with when we're talking about obesity, I think a lot of the conversation is that we do not want to characterize the person or make it about the person. Instead, we want to focus on what are the actions that will
you're coming in and going out. Sometimes your microphone is cutting out of Neil Lamont. I don't know if it's us or if it's you. Maybe, I don't know if it's your signal. I'm not sure. We're trying to figure it out. But okay, let's go again. Try again, sir.
Okay. Are you hearing me now?
I'm hearing you. It's not the volume, you know. It is that sometimes your audio is cutting out. That's the problem.
All right. So as I said earlier, when we talk about obesity, right? And it's not necessarily when we're talking about it, we're not talking about the individual, but we're talking about the condition itself, right? Okay. So I do understand talking about being body positive, and we're talking about persons being okay with themselves, but at the same time, we still have to stay true to the reality that we increasingly have a population
worldwide, where over 2.5 billion adults have been considered to be.
You're cutting out again, but I think we're getting the essence of what you're saying, Ophni Lamont. Until we get that resolved, Shaniel Allen, you've heard Ophni Lamont, your thoughts, because you're advocating for the youth, some youth regrettably, or whichever word you want to use, for whatever reason, shape, or whatever reason at all. In fact, let me rephrase that. Apologies if anyone who might be offended. For whatever reason, if anyone is having a challenge with their weight, whatever that challenge may be, some persons will argue, well, why are you shaming me for my weight? You know, why do I need to look a particular way to be considered, healthy? Your thoughts, Shaniel Allen?
All right, thank you. That's actually a very interesting question and one we grapple with all the time. And one of the things we also, when we talk about NCDs, so one of our work, like I said, is nutrition. And when we talk about NCDs, we try as best as possible to skirt around the issue of obesity as best as possible. But the reality is, it is an issue. And what we found is that when persons tend to be obese, they have
there's a feedback. There's a little bit of a feedback. I don't know the reason for the feedback, but if you're near a device that is also carrying the broadcast, if you could probably move away from that device, because we're getting a feedback.
I'm not sure what the issue is. Is it any better now?
Not totally, but we're going to look at that as well. I think we're making an attempt in studio to see what can be done by you or us to resolve that. But let's make it an attempt again, but speak a little bit slower so the echo, if there's an echo, will not be as distracting.
Okay, gotcha. All right, let's try this. So essentially, when we speak about obesity or someone being obese, we're not talking about the person. We're referring to it more of as a sort of medical condition, right? Where there's excess fat. And what we found is essentially with excess fat, the person has a higher chance of having hypertension and other NCDs, non-communicable diseases. And we've also seen that in our children, where 1 in 3 Jamaican children are overweight or obese. And we're also seeing an increase in hypertension and other NCDs among our children, right? And the statistics according to FAO.
Hold that thought one moment, Shaniel Allen, because I'm getting a signal here in studio, because you did slow down a little bit, but not enough to, cut out the distraction from what appears to be some sort of a feedback or echo. Not your fault, it doesn't seem, but we're going to make another attempt. Let's see if we can bring back in Ophni Lamont for the moment. Ophni Lamont?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Okay, so we have you back. Hopefully there will not be any cutting out of the broadcast in terms of what, trying to hear you. Whilst we try to resolve issues on your side, though, Shaniel Allen, we do apologize to listeners and to you, Miss Allen, for that. What are some of the activities, the physical activities that would be planned under this initiative to get children moving? And do you take it across the various schools, primary schools, prep schools, high schools, or you focus on a particular set of schools? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so as we were discussing, the National Nutrition Policy has a physical activity component. And basically, here are some of the things that we're hoping to see implemented in schools. So the policy looks at physical activity, moving it from currently what pertains is in most high schools after 9th grade, the children engage in no form of physical activity. And so we're saying physical activity for children from early childhood up to grade 13. We're also saying that there should be 3 5-minute physical activity breaks per day, a minimum of 1 hour of physical activity per week, physical education in schools as guided by the curriculum. A big thing for me is a safe, secure, and suitable play area for students. So when you think about the environments in which many of our schools are located and schools that have been open, some of them are not best suited to facilitate movement. And so if the environment in which the children or the adolescent children are located are not conducive to them moving, then essentially we have defeated ourselves by, just essentially putting them in these kind of environments. And then the last thing is access to safe and age-appropriate physical activity facilities and equipment. So we're talking about playgrounds, we're talking about necessarily. Well, some of the research has suggested that if children have been injured while being, say, for example, playing a sport, that child might become afraid of becoming physical activity, continuing to be physical active as they grow, just out of a fear of something that might have happened in their early childhood. So it's very important that we create
the embarrassment, they don't want a repeat of the embarrassment.
Yes. So it's very important that we create safe spaces where children can become physically active.
Now, can you build out on the word safe? Because sometimes these days words have different meanings from what they used to mean. What do you mean by safe? Because if a child is playing and they fall down and they scratch their knees and everyone around them laughs, is that considered unsafe?
Not necessarily, because we can't control the behavior of children. We know the children, but then the beauty of children is that they possess such a pure heart and they're able to recover or rebound very quickly. I think when we talk about safe, we're talking about environment. So we live in a country that certain areas there might be high levels of crime and violence, and so safety really has to do with.
You mean physical safety?
Yes. Safety, a big part of it is that environment safe to leave the child on the playground. A lot of times we find that or people are not active because some of the spaces in which they might be operating or they live in, there's not enough street lights. So why would you be walking after 5, right? The parent might want to walk with the child up the road as a form of bonding and physical activity, but are there sidewalks to walk on? So the space is not safe because potentially if the child is walking or the parent and the child is walking for a brisk walk, there are no sidewalks to walk on, so they could potentially be hit by a car. So when we talk about safety, we're really talking about a number of factors that would deter someone from going out or deter the child or the parent from deciding that, you know what, let's go to the park and hopefully nothing happens while we're there. That's how we look at safety in this regard.
See, and GC Foster College focuses on that, or is it something that you personally might think is relevant? Is in other words, because you are a physiotherapist at GC Foster College, I was kind of wondering if it's something that's a part of their program or curriculum.
So certainly, first of all, I am representing not in the capacity, my work capacity, but do acknowledge that the school at the GC Foster College does train physical education teachers. I do believe that physical education teachers can take on a far greater role in terms of how do we get our children back active, right? So, for example, the statistics would have shown that Jamaica in particular, there has been a 10.6% rise in obesity, right? Especially significantly, or girls are considered to, based on the data, are far more overweight or obese based on the latest statistics. And since we have been doing data recording over time, what we have found is within urban spaces, particularly like Kingston as opposed to Manchester, for comparative analysis, the children in Kingston would be considered, based on the data, would be far more likely to be overweight or obese as opposed to a child in the rural parts of Jamaica. And so,
Neil Lamont, I think we have to leave it there this morning. I think we're completely out of time. I was hoping to have Chanel Allen comment further. I wanted to ask a question in relation to the role of the parents in all of this. I know you did mention the parents being included at some level of Neil Lamont, but alas, never enough time at the morning watch of Neil Lamont and Chanel Allen. Thank you for your time and for your thoughts. Miss Allen, I wanted to ask you some more about the youth advocacy, but alas, can't ask you that today. Thank you for being with us. And thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues. And of course, visit the Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page for this and all other Love 101 FM programs. Listen to the Morning Watch on our Love 101 app. Download it today and stay connected to the family station, Love 101 FM, the #1 gospel station in Jamaica. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests, I am Stokeley Marshall, handing back Love in the Morning with Chakal.